Sarah first noticed the scratching on Tuesday night, a soft rhythmic scraping that seemed to come from inside the walls of her new apartment. She'd moved into the converted Victorian house just 3 days earlier, drawn by the cheap rent and the landlord's assurance that the building had been recently renovated. The scratching grew louder as the week progressed. By Friday, she could hear it clearly through the thin walls, dozens of tiny claws moving in perfect synchronization. Sarah assumed it was mice and made a mental note to buy traps. That weekend, she found the first hole. It was perfectly circular, about the size of a quarter, carved into the baseboard behind her refrigerator. The edges were smooth, too smooth for gnawing. Sarah crouched down and peered into the darkness beyond, but saw nothing. The next morning, there were 12 more holes. They formed a precise line along the wall, each identical to the first. Sarah's skin crawled as she examined them. The holes hadn't been chewed, they looked drilled, as if created by some impossibly small and precise tool. That night, she heard them talking. Not squeaking or chittering, but actual voices. Tiny, whispered conversations in a language she almost recognized but couldn't quite understand. The words seemed to flow like water, punctuated by what sounded disturbingly like laughter. Sarah pressed her ear to the wall. The voices stopped immediately. She stepped back, heart pounding, and waited. After several minutes, the whispers resumed, but now they seemed to be discussing her. She caught fragments that sounded like "the tall one" and "watching" and something that might have been her name. The holes multiplied overnight. By morning, they covered every wall in perfect geometric patterns. Sarah called her landlord, but the number went straight to voicemail. She tried calling exterminators, but each one hung up after she described the holes. On Tuesday, exactly 1 week after the first scratching, Sarah woke to find her apartment transformed. The holes had been connected by thin grooves carved into the walls, creating an intricate network of passages. The pattern was beautiful and terrible, like a mandala of tunnels extending throughout her home. In the center of her living room wall, a larger opening had appeared, perfectly round and large enough for her to put her fist through. Movement caught her eye. A single mouse emerged from the central hole. But this wasn't like any mouse Sarah had ever seen. Its fur was pristine white, and its eyes were too large, too intelligent. It stood on its hind legs and looked directly at her, tilting its head as if studying her reaction. More mice began to emerge, dozens, then hundreds, all identical in their otherworldly appearance. They moved with purpose, forming concentric circles around Sarah's feet. None of them made a sound. The largest mouse, though calling it a mouse now seemed inadequate, stepped forward. And when it spoke, its voice was clear and resonant, impossibly loud for such a small creature. "We have been waiting for you, Sarah." She tried to run, but found her legs wouldn't move. The mice had formed a perfect barrier around her, not touching, but somehow preventing her escape. "Your kind built their homes on our sacred places. You sealed our tunnels with concrete and steel. But we are patient. We have learned to adapt, to evolve." Sarah's voice came out as a whisper. "What do you want?" The mouse smiled, revealing teeth that were too sharp, too knowing. "We want what was always ours, but we are not unkind. You may join us if you choose, and if I don't?" The mouse's smile widened. "Look around you." Sarah turned her head slowly. The holes in the walls were no longer empty. From each one, dozens of glowing eyes watched her. The scratching sound returned, but now she understood it wasn't claws on wood. It was the sound of countless tiny hands working, carving, building something vast and incomprehensible within the walls of every building in the city. We are no longer the small ones. We are the many. We are the inheritors. And you, Sarah, are the first to witness our congregation. The eyes in the walls blinked in perfect unison, and Sarah realized with growing horror that the scratching sound was coming from every direction, from the building next door, from the street below, from the very foundations of the city itself. The mice had been busy, very busy indeed. As the white mouse began to grow larger, or perhaps Sarah began to grow smaller, she wondered if anyone would notice when she stopped coming to work, if anyone would think to look for her in the spaces between the walls, where the true residents of the city had been waiting all along. The last thing she remembered before the transformation was the sound of tiny voices, millions of them, whispering in perfect harmony about the new world they were building, one tunnel, one hole, one convert at a time.